Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Easily Integrate Data with Salesforce Lightning Connect. This is Marlis Furs, and I'll be your host for today's session. Beginning today's session is Matthew Monahan, Progress's Principal Product Manager for DataDirect Cloud. Matthew has nearly 20 years of experience in building and operating software as a service offerings and joined Progress in 2014. Also presenting today is Jason Choy, the Vice President of Product Management at Salesforce. Jason is responsible for integration products, including data loading, Canvas, enterprise APIs, and the latest edition, Lightning Connect. Joining Matthew and Jason to facilitate today's Q&A discussion is Greg Stasko, our Business Development Executive at Progress DataDirect. I would like to introduce Matthew Monahan to kick today's session off. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you, Marlis. Well, I'm really excited to talk about what we have today, both for DataDirect Cloud and for Salesforce. And as Marlis mentioned, Jason Choy will be talking a little bit about Lightning Connect today. So what we're going to do, I'll bring up the agenda here. We're going to kick it off. I'm going to talk just briefly a little bit about Progress Software and DataDirect, and then I'll hand it over to Jason for an introduction to Lightning Connect. Following that, I will talk a little bit about DataDirect Cloud and our integration with Salesforce Lightning Connect, and then provide a demonstration of DataDirect Cloud, being able to connect to back-end data and bring that in through OData into Salesforce via their Lightning Connect integration. As Marlis mentioned, we'll finish up with Q&A. Let me just tell you a little bit about Progress Software. And of course, during the course of this presentation, while our emphasis will be on current functionality and a demonstration of what our product can do today, we may discuss things that are forward-looking. And just want to be clear that the reader's advised that for any forward-looking statements about functionality that's in progress or will be released in the future, those plans are always subject to change, and you should not make any purchase decisions of either products or company stock based on that information. So Progress Software has been around for over 30 years now, and the DataDirect business, as part of that, has a focus on connectivity to a variety of different database systems, from relational systems to NoSQL, big data systems, as well as connectivity into software as a service application data and some of the transformations that happen for those products. So we offer quite a range of data connectivity and integration. We've been doing this for a while, and we're very happy to be working very closely with Salesforce to integrate our technology, the things that we've been using for years, and bring some of those capabilities into the Salesforce environment. So what I'd like to do now is turn things over to Jason Choy and let him tell you a little bit more about Lightning Connect.
Thank you, Matthew. So today we get more and more customers interested in using Salesforce as their front office tool, right? They would like using Salesforce as a system of engagement to connect with their customers. At the same time, as many of the enterprise customers, they still have their transactional, financial, and operational data stored in the back office systems. And that means that there will be a huge need for integration, how they would like to be able to see the data storing in the back office system in Salesforce. The traditional approach is using, as you can see on the screen here, different kinds of data loading capability, whether it's using a manual file loading or using an FTP process, or just some of the point-to-point processes, or even to the extent of using enterprise message bus for loading data into Salesforce. It works for some of the use cases. In certain use cases, it presents some challenges. One is that when you copy extra copy of data into Salesforce, that means the second that you finish copying, the data will become stale because your master will change down in the backup systems that you need to maintain a synchronization process, right? You're keeping the data in sync. Syncing data in megabytes or gigabytes probably easy, but when your data set is in petabytes or terabytes size, right? Syncing the data will becoming a operational challenge. Then the other one is that the process and complexity of building this kind of integration solution, you will be able to do it, for simple jobs, but when you have the data modeling or different kinds of like metadata schema that you need to maintain, you require a special talent skill set of people. You also takes time to configure this kind of integration capabilities, and also that will translate into money. So that's why at Salesforce, we're looking at all these challenges, and we come up with a new solution called Lightning Connect. So with Lightning Connect, it's just another integration product that we introduced. It is easy to use, meaning that the setup can be using simply mouse point and click to have the whole integration capabilities being set up. The data is being accessed in real time. What that translates into business value is that your business users using Salesforce will always have access to the real-time data being stored in your back office systems, so they will never have the doubts that the data they're seeing on Salesforce screen is different or outdated from the master. Then last but not least, because it's a new integration approach, they open up the door for our customers to be more innovative in terms of how they would be able to access and using the data, right, for the business, whether it's accessing it in their social applications, or using Chatter or not, or from mobile devices. They open up an entire new opportunities for our customers to be able to access their back office data. So let's take a quick look to see how is this Lightning Connect work. So for some of you that are familiar with the industrial trend, Lightning Connect is just similar to what was commonly referred to as data virtualization or data federation approach. What that means is that with Lightning Connect, the Salesforce server will be making an outbound web services call over the internet to retrieve the data in real time from the data source. The data source could be a SQL server, could be Oracle, could be SAP. The data is being retrieved in real time over the internet, and when we retrieve the data, we're not going to keep a copy of it. The data is only being retrieved on demand basis, meaning that we are not going to copy the entire data set. We'll only be querying the data sets for the specific needs. So if you want to pull the data for Jason, then you will be only pulling the 20 rows of data for Jason instead of like copying the entire millions rows of database into Salesforce. And when we pull the data into Salesforce, we're also not making any copy of it. The data will not be stored anywhere in our database or file system. The data will only exist in our server memory during the processing. And the data, when they're sitting in our memory, we actually take one more step, that is to format the data into a Salesforce object representation. What they translate into is that your data sitting outside as an external system will now present to your Salesforce user just as if it's another Salesforce object, so that many of the high-level Salesforce operation can be applied directly to the external objects, so that you can run queries, you can run search, you can build Visual Force pages or codes against it. And last but not least, in order to have an open system, we adopt an open standard called OData protocol as the wire protocol for us to access the data, because we believe that using an open standard will allow us to have a much healthier ecosystem, allowing our partners and customers to find and build solutions easily. So let's take a look to see why the Lightning Connect and DataDirect Cloud can come hand in hand. So in order for Lightning Connect to work, that means Salesforce server need to be able to access your data endpoints through the public internet. And today we don't have any way to penetrate the firewall, but most of our customers are putting their data source in the back office system on premises behind firewall. That's exactly where one of the area where DataDirect Cloud will be able to come to the rescue. The second bit is that, as I mentioned earlier, in order for Lightning Connect to work, you rely on the open data protocol, the OData protocol for the communication. And for many of the data sources, they might have an interface for OData that will work, but for the same token, right, there's so many other data sources that they do not have an OData interface. That's another area where DataDirect Cloud will be able to provide the OData interface for those database systems, allowing Lightning Connect to be able to access those data sources easily from the Salesforce side. So, Matthew, back to you so that you will be able to tell the audience how exactly is that DataDirect Cloud will be able to come help in these cases.
Well, thank you, Jason. Really appreciate that introduction to Lightning Connect. And I hope so far what our audience has picked up is that This really is a new paradigm for data integration between back office data and Salesforce as a system of engagement. And it's extremely powerful, and as Jason mentioned, really requires OData to be able to leverage that full capability. And so what I'm going to tell you about today is DataDirect Cloud, a little bit about how we manage data sources that we connect to, expose them via OData for use in Salesforce. So a little bit about DataDirect Cloud. Our philosophy at Progress has always been around standards and performance, and we offer an on-premise connector which enables you to securely traverse the firewall with your data. So what that means is that for your systems of record, whether it's a relational database like an Oracle or Microsoft SQL Server or IBM DB2 or a number of others that sit behind the corporate firewall, we can provide our on-premise connector rather than having to expose OData on your network and opening up a firewall hole so that Salesforce can connect in. Instead, we connect out to our cloud environment and provide a secure mechanism for moving that data around. The second thing is around standards-based connectivity. We do provide ODBC and JDBC drivers for our cloud environment, but most important, we provide that OData translation. So as we get into the demonstration, you'll see the range of data sources that we support in our cloud environment today. And any of those data sources can be exposed via the OData protocol and thereby consumed by the Salesforce Lightning Connect capability. And then finally, we provide access to software as a service or cloud data via the APIs that those providers already offer. And what we do is we pull those APIs in, provide some structure around it so that we can expose it, whether it's via OData, which has some very specific schema requirements, or ODBC or JDBC, depending on your specific use. So I want to talk about a specific use case that we have with one of our customers. And this is a large financial firm that currently has 11,000 Salesforce users. And these users are accessing data through Salesforce as their system of engagement. And some of them have been using Salesforce for a number of purposes and use cases. Some of them are new into Salesforce. But they all need access to a variety of data that is stored in the legacy system of record in a Siebel system. And so this large financial firm was looking to mitigate some of the business risks that Jason was talking about earlier with some of the traditional ETL solutions, as well as the risk of doing such a massive system change from one system to another. With 11,000 users, you want to make sure that they are up and running, productive, and able to access the data that they need without any interruption in that flow. Some of the specific requirements that they had first were to keep their system of record inside the firewall, meaning that they didn't want to expose some of this critical data out in any kind of cloud system. It needed to be accessible there, but not stored there. The second was providing real-time access, and as Jason mentioned, one of the challenges with some of the traditional ETL approaches are that the moment you move data from one location to another, it's out of date. There's always the potential that changes have occurred, potentially even during the ETL process, which can create some challenges in keeping that data current. And then third, performance and high availability were two extremely important considerations. 11,000 users, and if you think about the value of what those individuals are doing, and these are mostly sales and support individuals, as well as the cost of them not being able to access their system, it's significant. If data takes minutes to load, that's too long. So what were some of the other things that this firm had considered? Well, of course, they looked into the usual third-party ETL tools and the capability of storing data in custom objects within Salesforce. We've talked about some of the challenges there. The second was potentially providing a third-party application somewhere in an outside application that would pull the data in and make that available. Then you get into the swivel chair. Now you've got more systems to maintain. There's challenges there as well. So The third option was writing custom code within the Salesforce environment, generally something like Apex or some other code within Salesforce that would then tunnel back into the corporate network and pull that data in real time. But there's an enormous amount of complexity and cost that goes into that. And when this organization took a look at these usual options and then found out about Lightning Connect, they got really excited about the ability to have that real-time connectivity into the data, keeping it on their network. But the two things that they needed to accomplish were, one, getting through the firewall, and two, providing OData. So their Oracle database that holds the information from Siebel, it would have been significant amount of work for them to set up some kind of OData server, provide that connectivity into their Oracle database. Anytime they made changes, it would have required potentially more code work. There was a lot of complexity that they didn't want to tackle. And so they ended up going with Lightning Connect and DataDirect Cloud. So we provide that last mile connectivity between our cloud environment and the Oracle database. We have an Oracle driver that we provide, and it's a wire protocol driver. It is extremely high performance, and we provide that inside of our on-premise connector, which can then communicate out from the corporate network into our cloud environment in a very secure way, encrypted traffic, everything highly reviewed for security, as well as for performance, so that the return communication from Salesforce comes through our cloud and gets into the database in a very secure manner. Not only was this a great solution for this financial firm in terms of what their use case was today, but it also made a very easy path for them to add additional data later. So of course, like many organizations, they've got things they're exploring around data lakes and some of the NoSQL databases and newer technologies, as well as some of their other legacy systems, for example, Microsoft SharePoint, others that are also sitting behind the firewall. And so this is a very short path for them to now extend this solution in a way that enables them to pull in additional data without any additional configuration on the Salesforce side. No additional integration work required. One of the things that was really appealing to the folks at this firm was that it was really a clicks not code solution. It didn't require a massive IT project. It didn't require weeks or months of expensive resources doing development work that would then have to be maintained going forward. It was really a point-and-click solution within the Salesforce environment as well as within DataDirect Cloud. And what we're going to do now in this second half here is actually walk through a demo so that you can see what I'm talking about and understand how simple it really is to establish this connectivity and bring it into Salesforce. So I'm going to switch over to my browser and look around the room here for a nod or two that my browser is showing. Make sure that I am still logged in here. So this is DataDirect Cloud. DataDirect Cloud is a combination of a web interface and a set of APIs. Everything that I'll show you today through the user interface is also available through a RESTful web interface. So it's an API that allows you to configure data sources, access your data. All of that is available via API. The dashboard and the web UI just makes it a little bit easier to get started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into data sources. I'm just going to take a quick pause here to click on data stores to give you an idea of the data sources that we support today. And you'll see that there is a range of databases from traditional relational databases to some of the newer ones, some of the big data stores, some of the software as a service applications that are out there. And we are constantly adding to this list. In fact, there are a number in our beta list that are going to move up into GA in the coming weeks here. So this is a constantly evolving list. And we're always looking for our customers to provide feedback on the data that's most important to them and how they'd like to see that connected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look into one of my data sources. So this one, just to give you an idea on the information that needs to be entered to make a connection for the first time, it's all on this first page here. So we have a data source name. So this is within the DataDirect Cloud environment. I've set a name to reference this specific data source. I provided a description just so that I understand where it is. And this is a simple RDS database that I've set up. It's based on Microsoft SQL Server, hosted at Amazon, and I just set that up for demo purposes to show how that's connected. I've entered my database username and password. I have specified the server name, so that's the name by which my database instance is accessible, as well as the standard port number. And then within that database server, I've identified the specific database that I'm connected to. And if you're familiar with Microsoft SQL Server, AdventureWorks is a common sample set of data, so you may be familiar with that as we go through this demonstration. So far, that's the most basic information that needs to be put in. And if I were to test connection, this will go out and make sure that the connectivity between DataDirect Cloud and the database has been established successfully, that the username and password are valid. And if I go back to my data sources page, I select that AdventureWorks database, and I click on SQL testing. What I can demonstrate from the UI here is that within this database, I can take a look at all the different schemas that are available. I can select one such as sales, and I can expand this. So you see that I'm already connected to the database. I can take a look into my database structure. I could see the schemas, the tables, the columns, and if I wanted to, I could actually execute a query here, such as select all from, say, sales.customer. I can execute that, and I can bring that data back into DataDirect Cloud. Great, so I've established connectivity, but what I really want to do is I want to bring this data into Salesforce. So how do I do that? So I'm going to go back to my data source. I'm going to edit this one, and I'm going to go over to the OData tab, and I'm going to configure a schema. So to understand a little bit about what we do, we connect to relational databases, right? So things that you're very comfortable with in terms of SQL queries, relational structure, tables, rows and columns, but we also connect to APIs, which might be objects and attributes, and has a very different structure to them. No matter what we connect to, we can expose all of that in a very organized, relational kind of way around tables or objects and rows and columns. And some of that is required for OData, because OData is a REST API, but it's also one with a defined schema. So it has that structure around the traditional HTTP GET, POST, PUT calls that you have for a REST API, but it's got the structure that's necessary for something like Salesforce to read and understand those APIs programmatically. And so what I'm going to do, by clicking on Schema, Configure Schema, I'm going to go back and I'm going to select the sales schema again. And these are my tables that are available within the sales schema in my database. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know what, I want to take a look at sales information. So my sales information in my back office system, I want to bring into Salesforce so that my sales reps or my customer service reps can access that information when they're on the phone or exchanging emails with a customer or prospect. And so I'm going to expand this so you can get a sense for what this is here. And you'll see that within the sales order header, I have a number of fields. Right, all that information is available. You can see that DataDirect Cloud has identified from the database structure that the sales order ID is the primary key. And you can see that one of the things I have in here is customer ID. Well, of course, I'm going to need to relate this particular, a particular order record that's stored in this table to some kind of individual or contact record in Salesforce. So the customer ID, that's going to be useful, but you know what? I don't have customer ID. Maybe I have account number stored in Salesforce. Well, I want sales order header, but let me also go into my customer record where I have the customer ID as the primary key. Oh, there we go. There's account number. And maybe account number is the item that I need to relate in Salesforce. So I'm also going to check off customer. So I now have customer and sales order header selected. And I'm going to save this. And what you'll see here is that the schema map that's been generated based on the UI that I've used, right? Remember, everything is API accessible, so I could just do an API call that identifies this string for the schema if I wanted to. Includes, within the sales schema, it includes sales order header and customer. So those are the two now objects that will be exposed via OData. Now, if I wanted to do some testing, I'm not going to go into too much around some of the testing tools, but I could copy this service URL, and I could paste it into a tool such as Postman, for example. And let me actually save this here. Click Update. And within a tool like Postman, I can send that same URL up here, that service URL, and I could submit that with an HTTPS GET, and it will come back and tell me customers and sales order headers are the two entities that are available in this OData endpoint. So what have I done so far in the past, say, 5 or 10 minutes? I've established connectivity to my database. I have done an OData mapping, which has exposed the data via an OData endpoint. And now what I want to do is I want to bring this data into Salesforce. So I'm using a Salesforce developer account right here. I don't believe Jason mentioned it, so I'll just throw it out there. If you create a Salesforce developer account, you will, with that developer account, automatically have the ability to create external data sources. I'm going to walk you through that process. If you have a production account that you want to do this in, you can request through your Salesforce rep that a sandbox be configured with access to Salesforce Lightning Connect, and so you can test this out in your primary production org within Salesforce. So I'm in the Setup tab, right? So you click on. I'm sure many of you, if you're familiar with Salesforce, may already know about this, but you click on Setup, and I'm going to scroll down to Develop under the Build section, expand that. And I'm going to go to External Data Sources. As Jason mentioned earlier, an external data source is very similar to a custom object or any of the native objects within Salesforce. And I'm going to click on New External Data Source. And I'm going to give this some configuration. So again, no code. This is all so far just point and click web interface type stuff that I'm doing. And let's call this, say, sales orders. And then I'm going to select Lightning Connect as the type of external data. And I'm going to paste in that URL that is generated, again, datadirectcloud.com. That's the URL that we provide, the OData endpoint. Under format, I'm going to switch it over to JSON. We do support either one. What we've found is that JSON seems to be slightly better performance, so that's our recommendation. And then under authentication, I'm going to select named principal. Named principal authentication means that within this Salesforce environment, I'm going to specify one username and password to bring that external data into my Salesforce environment, and then within my Salesforce account, any of my users will have access to that data, unless constrained within Salesforce's permissions system. There's also the option to do per user, which would mean that each individual user would have to provide their own data source username and password. So under named principal, I'm going to switch this over to password authentication. And I'm going to enter my DataDirect Cloud username and password. Not the database username and password, the DataDirect Cloud information. And this will give me access to any of the data that I've exposed via OData for DataDirect Cloud, regardless of the underlying data source. So I'll go ahead and hit save. So I have now configured the external data source, and now what I need to do is actually connect to it. So by clicking on the Validate and Sync button, that will tell Salesforce, go connect to the URL defined below and see what's out there. And what it's done is it's come back, and very similar to that test in Postman that I showed you earlier, I see the two entities. And if I go ahead and check the box here, I can select both entities or objects or tables, depending on the lingo you want to use, and I'll click on Sync. And Salesforce is now going out and reading the schema from DataDirect Cloud that was built by DataDirect Cloud by reading the SQL Server database. And if I scroll down, you'll see that there are now two external objects related to this external data source. And if I click on one of them, say for example sales order headers, and if I scroll down a bit, what you will see here is that all of the fields that were accessible and visible in my graphical SQL editor within DataDirect Cloud, they would be the same within the database. You'll see that all the way through, from the database all the way into Salesforce, we have maintained information not just about the actual objects, but all of the fields within the object or columns within the table within the database, and we've maintained the data types. So this information that's available in that database is now available within my Salesforce environment. So I can do whatever I want within the Salesforce environment now to use this information, and whenever a record within this external object is accessed, it is in real time. So to pull up a sales order record within Salesforce, it's going to generate the query, Salesforce will, via OData, send it to DataDirect Cloud, where we will take that OData request, translate it into the appropriate SQL statements to access the data out of Microsoft SQL Server. So that is the end-to-end demonstration to show the ability to pull data from DataDirect Cloud through OData into Salesforce Lightning Connect. I think I've kind of been rambling on here for about 20 minutes, so you can see that in under 20 minutes we're able to provide all of that connectivity all with just point and click. So depending on what information you have, if I just go back to DataDirect Cloud and again show you the data source, if you already know the database you're connecting to, the information you want to bring in, your username and password for the database, today, right now, you can go out to datadirectcloud.com. You can sign up for a free 30-day evaluation, and you can actually test this out. It's available today. It's been available for quite a while now. At this point, I think what I'm going to do is take a breath for a moment. I'm going to hand things over here to my colleague, Greg Stasko. We're going to give him an opportunity to take a look at any questions that have come in so far. I will mention a reminder that probably somewhere on the right-hand side of your screen there should be a GoToWebinar panel that will allow you to ask any questions that you have, and we will read through those, answer as many of those as we can. Again, my name is Matthew Monahan. It's been a pleasure talking with all of you today. Jason, I really appreciate you taking the time, and of course, if anyone has questions for Jason, we can point those at Jason as well, and take the next 15 or 20 minutes to go through any questions that you folks have. Greg?
Thank you, Matthew and Jason. We do have some good questions that have come in. The first one, is there any special database permissions or privileges that I have to OData enable my data source?
Great question. So the only permissions that you need at the database level are ones that allow you to read and access the data that you want to bring in to DataDirect Cloud and through DataDirect Cloud into Lightning Connect. So there are a couple of ways to do this. One is if it's a I'll say publicly accessible data source, meaning maybe it's out on the web or it's available through your firewall today. You just need to put those credentials into DataDirect Cloud, and then you can access those. If it is behind a firewall, you will need to install the on-premise connector. And I'm just going to jump back to the demo here briefly and show you that under the quick links on the left-hand side, there is a downloads link. You click on that, and in the bottom right here, you will see the DataDirect Cloud on-premise connector installer. There's a 32 and a 64-bit version available for Windows today. And so you would download either of those as appropriate. If you want to do a basic test and you're running a Windows machine on your corporate network that has access to the database, you could just install that on your desktop computer or laptop and give it a test that way. If you don't have access to that from your desktop, if it's in a segmented part of the network, then the on-premise connector would need to be installed in that network segment so it has access to the database. The only thing you need for that installer is your DataDirect Cloud username and password. So, of course, if you get to this download page, you've already got your DataDirect Cloud username and password because it's behind the login. So that information is configured when you install the on-premise connector. The on-premise connector is designed to be very secure, not only in the data that it transmits, but in the way it works. So you must put in a username and password when you install your on-premise connector, and that one can only be used with your account. So there's no way for any other account within DataDirect Cloud ever to access your on-premise connector. So hopefully that answered the question.
Yes, thank you. Another question that's come in, are there limits to how frequently I can connect and to the volume of data that I retrieve?
So there are, and I'm just going to talk for a moment, but Jason, feel free to jump in. I believe that for Lightning Connect, there are some limitations on the volume of calls that are separate from the other APIs. So it does not fit into the overall API bucket that you have today. There are some limitations around, per OData endpoint, I think it's up to 100 objects or tables. Jason, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add there that I'm missing.
Thank you, Matthew. So you're absolutely right. For the access to the external object, because the data is being stored outside of Salesforce, so it's maintaining a different set of limits or quotas different than the APIs. So currently, we have a limit more or less for, you can call it a service protection. This is about 50,000 calls per hour, so meaning that on an hourly basis, you can make up to 50,000 outbound OData queries against the external data system. However, as I mentioned, this is just more or less a soft limit for service protections. That means if you have the need to go above that limit, all you need to do is to submit a request for the Salesforce rep, then we can raise the limit to a higher ceiling. So that's on the rate limit side. Exactly like Matthew was saying, there's also a limit in terms of how many external objects you can have on a per Salesforce perspective. So you can link external objects to database tables. Today we have up to 100 objects per Salesforce auth. That means that you can have, once you establish the connectivity to external database, you can have up to 100 external objects in that particular Salesforce auth, right? That map to the database tables. We're planning on the Salesforce side to increase that limit. This currently is a technical limitation, but we're planning to lift that in the future releases. Hopefully that will give you a lot more than just 100.
Thank you, Jason. And on the DataDirect Cloud side as well, we currently limit based on the volume of data that passes through. So depending on the particular plan type, there are a number of different limits as to how much data can be moved through DataDirect Cloud before you become open to data overage charges.
All right, thank you very much. Another question a user is asking, can we update external object records through Salesforce and then write back to the on-premise data source?
Great question. So today, we do not have on either the Salesforce side or the DataDirect Cloud side write available, although I should say that on the Salesforce side, write capability is currently in a limited preview. So if you request access to that through your Salesforce rep, that's something that can be enabled. Salesforce is working on releasing that into GA later this year for DataDirect Cloud. We are also working on write support and plan to support that as soon as Salesforce goes GA with that capability.
Thank you for that. Another question comes in is specific to versions of databases that are supported. The question is asked, if my Oracle version is not current, am I still able to enable it with OData?
That is a great question, and we make we go to extended lengths to make sure that prior versions of the databases that we support are supported to the greatest extent possible. I don't have that list in front of me, but we can certainly provide a list of the specific database versions that are accessible via DataDirect Cloud and our connectivity.
Excellent. Are you able to use external object data to trigger workflows from the Salesforce side?
I'm going to let Jason handle that one because I'm actually not sure.
Sure. That's actually a great question, right? So the nature of external objects, I think the biggest difference between external object and a standard or custom Salesforce object is that the data is being stored outside of Salesforce, which also means that there isn't, when the data change in your master somewhere outside of Salesforce, there isn't a way for us to find out whether the data gets changed. That presents a challenge in terms of implementing the triggers and workflows. However, when we going to have the support for OData 4.0 standard, where it has a callback hook, right, for the external system to notify us using this special hook, then we would be able to implement triggers and workflows. So long story short, today when we only have OData 2.0 connectors, workflow and triggers is not supported for the Lightning Connect external objects. But we are currently working on the OData 4.0 connectors. We're planning to have that ready to be released by the end of the year. When we have that, then we would be able to support triggers and workflows.
Thank you, Jason. On a related question following up on that, what is the ability in terms of external data for use with either Salesforce reporting or Salesforce Wave Analytics?
So for reports, it's falling into the same category. The nature of report is that because the data is sitting outside, if we're pulling small quantity of data, it's easy. But when you would like to, let's say, do a full table scanning or joining the internal objects and external objects together, that might require excessive pulling of the data. So we're working actively on some sort of like local caching approach, allowing us to support reports, right, the custom report types on the external objects. This functionality belongs to the same category of the functionality that we're trying to complete the solution by the end of the year. And then probably you'll be expecting both triggers, workflows, and reports will be available for use by the end of the year. And then I think the second half of the question is related to Wave. So I think, as some of you know, Salesforce rolled out our Wave Analytic Cloud late last year, and then Lightning Connect has been used actually in conjunction with that. Some of our customers have been using Lightning Connect to pump the data from external databases into Wave, right? Using it just purely as think about it as more like connecting tissue to be able to allow them to access the external system, and then in turn and pushing the data into the Wave's Analytic Cloud. For the same token, right? So there's also other customers using the same approach. You can think about creating some sort of like their own ad hoc ETL solutions using Lightning Connect to pull data from a external, whether it's SAP, Oracle, or Microsoft system, and then using a piece of Apex code to replicating the data from the external objects into a custom object. We have also seen use cases like that. So this is more like belonging to the category of the use cases that some of our customers using Lightning Connects as the connectors to bridging systems among the Salesforce side, which is a little bit different than the real-time access use cases that we typically present to our customer.
Excellent, Jason. Thank you. We have another question that's come in. They're asking about, can I use DataDirect Cloud and Lightning Connect to link my spreadsheets on Google Drive or on OneDrive and bring that data into Salesforce?
Google Drive or OneDrive. So we have seen a few requests for data sources that are outside what we would consider our traditional data source model, those document repositories. And today we don't have that capability. That's something that we would consider putting on the roadmap if there was significant interest in it. I'd be very curious offline to learn a little bit more about the specific use cases around that and the type of specific documents or data that folks want to bring in that way.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Matthew. Excuse me. Can we bring data from multiple sources, for example, SQL Server and Oracle, into a single object in Salesforce? Can that object be populated with data from more than one external source?
So today there is, that's currently something that we are working on. We expect to release that in the very near future, I believe with our next release. That is the capability to take within DataDirect Cloud more than one of a configured data sources, and it doesn't have to be the same kind, right? One could be Oracle, one could be SQL Server, one could be Google Analytics, to pull those into a group and then expose, instead of the individual data sources, instead expose the group with an OData endpoint, and then present that to Salesforce. So there are, probably a few different use cases where that makes sense. And that's something that we do expect to release very soon.
Matthew, I can add to that. That's the capability that will not be supported out of box from Salesforce, right? That's exactly one of the examples where DataDirect Cloud can provide values where a customer will be able to construct and composite objects, right, among different data sources and present it as a single virtual OData feed to Salesforce, because on the Salesforce side, we wouldn't be able to construct a composite objects from different data sources. We're relying on a middleware solution such as DataDirect Cloud to be able to fill the gap. So that's another example why there are certain use cases or there are certain areas that would be much easier to be handled by DataDirect.
Exactly. Thank you.
The questions asked, can external data be integrated with facilities other than the Sales Cloud? Can I use it from portals or from Service Cloud, things like that?
I think that is more related to Salesforce. The quick answer to that is yes, right? External object is just like a custom object, to be honest, right? So pretty much whatever you would be able to use for custom objects, you will be able to use it for external objects. You can, not just on the Sales Cloud, you can see it in the Service Cloud. You'll be able to look at it in the consoles, and then you will be able to build Visual Force pages. You can construct your search using SOC code to create your query languages or search languages against it. The only big subtle difference is that for all the external objects, none of the data is being stored locally in Salesforce databases. Every time the object is being accessed, we need to make a new outbound web services call to reach over the internet to reach your data endpoint to fetch the data over the internet into Salesforce. So the data is always, fresh, and you will not be looking at some of the stale, outdated data. But at the same time, that means that performance is huge because at the end of the day, we still need to go over the internet to pull the data from the data source. That makes it very important that you choose a middleware that will be giving you the good performance and also with good scalability.
Thank you, Jason. I think we're reaching our last question. Can you describe any limitations, the trials that have been mentioned, the trials of DataDirect Cloud and the sandbox use of Lightning Connect on the Salesforce side? Are there limitations in terms of what a user can do with those?
Yeah, I think there are probably a few. I mean, in both cases, they are designed to be development, test, evaluation environments. They're not meant to be production environments. I think that's the first and maybe should be obvious to state. In terms of DataDirect Cloud, we do not have a lot of limitations within the 30-day free trial. So in other words, you can set up multiple data sources. You can configure any of our supported data sources. There will be some bandwidth limitations, just as they are with the production accounts. So those are some of the things that will be slightly different within DataDirect Cloud. On the sandbox side, at least in terms of testing Lightning Connect, I haven't come across any specific limitations there. Jason, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add in terms of sandbox limitations on the Salesforce side.
Not so much on that limitation, right? Lightning Connect is a GA product, as Matthew, you mentioned earlier. It is available in all our developer edition organizations, meaning today you go to request for a DEOS on the Salesforce side, the features already enabled by default on that org, right? From a functionality perspective, all the features are there. The only difference between as Matthew mentioned, right, the developer edition is mainly for development purposes. The only difference is we are limiting the number of transactions or the capacity you can make out from the DER. But other than that, from a functionality feature-wise, it's exactly the same as what you will see in a enterprise or above editions. From a sandbox perspective, at the same time, there's no difference, right, between a sandbox that enable with a Lightning Connect trial versus a production org. I think the only difference is that there could be a trial period, right? It could be a 30 days, 60 days that you would be able to try on these features until the trial license expires. I think that's pretty much the only difference between a sandbox trial versus a full production org.
Well, thank you, Jason, and thank you, Greg, for passing those questions along. I think we're just about to wind up the hour here. So again, let me extend my gratitude and my thanks to Jason Choy for joining us today, talking about Lightning Connect. Greg, thank you for going through those questions with us. I'm going to turn it back over to Marlis and wish you all a very nice rest of your day.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. And today's session was recorded and will be available through an email that will be sent out to everyone that has registered. And again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar.